No, okay, I think it's recording. All right. So we'll start very quickly talking about the IELTS speaking exam. And then I will tell you the agenda very quickly now. Just excuse me for a second because I am not a very high-tech person. I'm just saying, okay, here it is. Okay, can you see my screen? I am sharing a screen right now of slides. All right, so I will tell you the agenda of our, what is it? Why is it not moving? Okay, I will be talking a little bit about myself. I already told you guys a little bit about myself, but I would tell you why you can trust me, okay? And we will be talking about the IELTS exam, the structure and the criteria, and then my friend Feds will be taking over and she will be talking about how to defeat the limiting mindset, which is probably holding you back at the moment. And as I said, she is someone who has 15 years of experience, and she's very, very good with helping people shifting the mindset to achieve the target that you have. And then we will be talking about the peer technique, which is one of the most useful techniques for the IELTS speaking exam that I have ever come across. And we will be talking about the 3-rule technique that I myself invented to help you guys show off your English, because I believe that your English is good enough. You just don't know how to show it to the examiner yet. And then we will have some live Q&A, and then we will have some gifts for you guys. Okay, so I will go very quickly through the first part about myself, not very self-centered. So my name is Huyen and I am from Vietnam. I was born and raised in Vietnam. I have 11 years of experience with the IELTS exam, 12 years, including the years that I studied for the IELTS exam myself, and almost 11 years of teaching it. And I'm a founder of PracticeNight.co, where you can get free practice tests and a lot of free tips. And I am the creator of IELTS with Huyen. Okay, you probably know me if you have seen me on TikTok or on Instagram. And again, I would like to thank you very much for joining me today. It shows that you trust me enough to spend time with me. So I really appreciate that. So let us talk about the IELTS speaking exam now. I would like to change your mindset a little bit, your understanding of the IELTS speaking exam a little bit, because I want to share with you a story. I have a friend who was born in Jordan, and he was educated in English. His entire education was in English, and his family speaks English very well. And he had been working for a lot of big companies across the Gulf area. And he found himself in Australia, and somehow he wanted to stay in Australia because he loved the country very much. And because of that, he needed to take the IELTS exam. Now, if you think about somebody who is really, really fluent in English and who had been working using English his entire career, you would think that he would get a very high score in IELTS speaking, but he got only 6.5 for his very first, his first attempt, and his second attempt was 6.5. And apart from that, he didn't get a very good band score for other skills as well. So he didn't get the band score to stay back in Australia. He had to move back home. And when we met and he got to know that I was an IELTS trainer, and he was very curious because he thought something was wrong with the exam. Now, given that his English was excellent, I just said that he just lacked the English skill, the exam skills, because he didn't know how to show that English to the examiner. So there are 2 things that you need to keep in mind for any exam, not only the IELTS speaking exam. The first one is the English fluency. And of course, you need to be fluent in English in order to start preparing for the IELTS speaking exam. If you don't speak English yet, it is almost impossible for you to get the band score that you need, right? So first of all, if you find yourself struggling understanding English, I don't think it's the case here because you are here with me. I'm speaking in English only, right? But If you find yourself struggling, or you know someone who wants to take the IELTS exam, but they are struggling speaking and understanding English, the first thing you should advise them was to just take English classes to improve their English before preparing for the IELTS exam. Because when you prepare for the IELTS exam, you are preparing for the exam skills. You're learning the exam skills, and you try to apply the exam skills in the exam itself to show off your English to get the band score that you need, which is why my job is to prepare you for the exam, is to give you the exam skills. And the English fluency should be done by you. And in my opinion, English fluency is something that consists of two things. So the first thing is, of course, your foundation of the English language. And the second thing is the mindset that you have for learning English or learning anything in general, which is why I invited Fats to join me today. So I would say that if you are already fluent in English, this class will be the only class you will need for the IELTS speaking exam. You do not need any more classes for IELTS speaking. You probably will need a little bit of evaluations if you are not confident yet with your IELTS speaking performances. But other than that, I don't think you will ever need any class for the IELTS speaking exam. Just keep that in mind, because a lot of people will be selling you things, but you already know a lot of things from this masterclass, so you don't have to really buy other classes from other teachers, in my opinion. Okay. So anyway, during the class, if I speak too fast, or if I say something that you don't really understand and you want me to clarify, please raise your hand, or please give me a comment. I will read your comment. The thing is, sometimes, because I'm a low-tech person, I really need to do a little bit of opening. Okay, do I have any question here? Okay, not yet. Okay, so we are moving on to the next slide. So I would like to talk very quickly about the IELTS speaking exam, the structure of the IELTS speaking exam. You are here probably, you already know about this. So I will go through it very quickly, okay? We have 3 different parts, and I would like to use an analogy of making friends to describe the structure of the IELTS speaking exam, to tell you what you need to do to get the band score that you need. And of course, you want a high band score, right? So I assume that you guys are wanting something 7 and above, and I would love to see your 7 and above, okay? So part 1 is the introduction and the interview. Basically, you understand it as in you go to a bar and you meet someone for the first time in your life, and you don't know about that someone doesn't know anything about you, right? So what that someone wants to know is your name, where you're from, your job, your study, your hobbies, what you do in your free time, for example, what music you like, and a lot more things. So basically, part 1 is like a casual conversation to get to know each other. But in this case, you're not getting to know the examiner. The examiner will not be allowing you to ask questions about themselves. The examiner will be asking you questions about yourself, and you will be giving answers to those questions. And that is why this conversation is a bit casual, and you feel free to say what you think. Now, it is related to one of the biggest and the most popular questions for the IELTS exam, whether or not it is okay to lie in the exam. I will tell you the answer later. I will explain it later. Please remind me. But just keep in mind that this is a casual conversation between you and the examiner, so you don't really have to stress out so much, okay? And the answers in part 1 are normally quite short. You don't have to give like a speech for part 1. I've noticed a lot of people giving like a life story when answering questions in part 1. I'll be like, no, that's not necessary. You don't have to do that. It is not something that the examiner is looking at. They are looking at the ability to answer questions, basically. Do excuse me a little bit. I forgot to put my phone on do not disturb mode. Sorry. Anyway, so let's move back to our session. Part two is where you give a longer speech. Let's say when you know this person a little bit better now, right? It's time for you to tell some stories. Tell stories about your ex-boyfriend, your ex-girlfriend, how bad they were. Talk about the trip you took to Iran. Talk about the house you want to build on top of a mountain, things like that, right? So that is when you are a little bit more comfortable with someone. You want to tell them a story. And this part tests your ability to speak for a longer time. So you will be asked to speak for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And if you don't speak long enough, that's going to affect your score. That is going to affect your fluency score. And follow that, we have part 3, which is a discussion. So you normally do not have a discussion with somebody you don't know, right? This is when you and that person have known each other for a while, and you kind of trust that person enough to have a debate, to have a discussion with that person about different things in life, some debates, say at what age children should start using technology, for example, right? I know in real life there are people who straightly go to discussion with other people, talking about politics, talking about going to space. Like Katy Perry just went to space, and how wonderful it is for her to go to space. I mean, I don't agree with that, but anyway. But in real life, in general, normally you do not have discussions with somebody you know, just got to know now, right? So this kind of discussion, the topics are based on the topic in part 2, which is why you will need to speak a little bit longer than part 1. Your answer should be a little bit longer, but your answer shouldn't be as long as in part 2, not 2 minutes per answer. But I would say 1 minute should be enough. Yeah. So in part 3, you will need to organize your ideas. And just like someone just said, they had some problems with answering questions in the IELTS Speaking part 3. And I will be giving you the techniques and the tips to tackle this part. All right. Just so you know that the IELTS Speaking exam is assessed by 4 different criteria. 4 different criteria, okay? Some people mistake it as the exam is assessed by part, like if I do very good in part 1, part 2, but part 3 I do a little bit bad, it was going to be bad or something. No, okay? If you do very well in part 1, part 2, and a little bit less well in part 3, the overall score wouldn't be affected very much. So don't worry about that. What you need to worry about is the 4 criteria to assess your speaking. Now, the 4 criteria are here. You have pronunciation, of course, because this is speaking. You need to have good pronunciation. And I want to emphasize the differences between good pronunciation and accent. You can have any accent. I have an accent. And my husband who got 8.5 speaking also has an accent. He's Indian. So we all have accents here because we're not native speakers, but we need to pronounce words correctly and clearly. There are differences between having good pronunciation and having an accent. All right. So I will not be going and talking about that, but don't worry about your accent. Your accent is okay as long as you pronounce words correctly and clearly. In pronunciation, there is also a part of how to put stresses in words and put stresses in sentences, the intonation that you have in the for your answers, like up and down and things like that. And we will be discussing in the tip part. And then you have fluency and coherence. Basically, if you answer questions fluently without showing struggles to think so much, you are fine. Right. Now it prompts a question about pauses. Should you pause or should you not pause? And I will be also talking about this later, but just so you know, this is the fluency and coherence part of the criteria. And then you have grammar, and then you have vocabulary. Of course, you need to have good grammar. You need to have good range of vocabulary as well. But what kind of grammar, what kind of vocabulary? Grammar here, you are not requested to be flawless. You're not requested to not make any mistakes. Of course, if you make 1 or 2 mistakes, you still get a very good band score for grammar. If you make more mistakes, of course, you will lose more points. But it's not like you have to be flawless. Okay, make 1 or 2 mistakes, simple mistakes should be okay. And for vocabulary, you don't have to speak like you are a scientist. Okay, and in fact, in my opinion, if you speak like a scientist, it'd be more difficult for people to understand. We are targeting clarity here. So high level of grammar and high level of vocabulary, yes, but first of all, what you use has to be correct and then natural. Okay, before you go any further. If you are not correct, it doesn't matter how high level the vocabulary is, you will still get a reduction in your score. That is what I'm telling you. Okay. So here is the criteria, and each criteria here is 25% of the overall score. In order for me to evaluate your speaking of performances, I need to, of course, have a test with you, and then I would be looking at all the criteria here, and I would be telling you the weaknesses and the strengths, and based on different information that you will be giving me, I will be giving you the study plan so that you will study in a better way and to get the results that you want in a faster way. I'm not saying fast, okay? I'm saying faster. So these are the criteria. I know that you guys are very fluent in English, and I know that you guys are good with your English language. However, if you find yourself struggling a little bit and you find yourself feeling a little bit less capable, you want to improve a little bit of your speaking skills, here are the things that you can do for you to improve your speaking skills. But in my opinion, because you're here, because I believe that you can speak English fluently, you don't have any problem understanding anyone speaking in English. I don't think the biggest problem you're having right now is with the English skills. I think the problem you have right now is with the mindset, which is why I invited my friend Feds over here to come and join me to share with you methods to train your mindset a little bit. Now, if you find yourself thinking too much about grammar when you speak, not only in real life, not only in IELTS, but also in real life, that's a red flag. And you face struggles with using the vocabulary that you have learned or you know in your speaking. And when you speak, you kind of a lot, you kind of doubting yourself. You think that your answers are not good enough and you should have a better answer, for example. I think that is a very big red flag about mindset. Okay. So now I would like to give the stage to my friend Feds to be talking about the mindset that how she can help you improve the mindset for the IELTS speaking exam. Let me just stop sharing now and allow Feds to speak over here. Feds, you can share the screen now. I will be muting my audio. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. First of all,
we cannot hear you yet. We cannot hear you.
Let's try without a microphone.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
This is so funny because there are two loads of people here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I cannot hear you yet.
You can't hear me.
Oh, can I hear? Oh, wait a second. It's me.
I think you're the only one who can't hear me. Okay.
Okay.
Go on. Okay.
Okay, sorry, I'm the problem.
As long as you guys can hear me, that's the most important thing.
Great.
So let me just share my screen. Um, there we go. Well, first of all, hi to all of you. It's so good to be here. I'm so happy Huyen asked me to be here. I just want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what mindset is, of what I do, and how I work with students preparing for exams. IELTS is one of them. Um, just to begin with, I just want to tell you a tiny bit, a little about me. So I'm a accredited mindset coach. I'm also in the process of becoming a neuro language coach. I have been working for over 15 years in the UK and in the US. I am originally from Italy. Not many people can tell by my accent. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I've been practicing English for over 30 years and I've been working with hundreds of clients preparing for exams, IELTS, interviews, all sorts of things, presentations. So anything that requires a little bit of mental preparation, let's say. So when it comes to exams and when it comes to IELTS specifically, these are some of the things I work on. So as you can tell, there's a bunch of stuff, starting from limiting beliefs, self-talk and internal dialogue, time management, perfectionism. So I'm curious to see if there's any one of you who thinks that could benefit from any of this, or maybe that you have some issues with any of this. How do you manage your stress? How do you keep your motivation up? How do you deal with your mindset in general? If there's anything that catches your attention, then probably you may need a little bit of practice and a little bit of mindset shifting preparing for IELTS. So when we look at what we're going to do today, so this is our agenda very briefly. We're going to look at what is mindset, what are limiting beliefs. Are you aware of your limiting beliefs? A lot of people don't even realize that they have them. How can we challenge and reframe those limiting beliefs? And a couple of strategies to improve your IELTS speaking. Now, as we've just seen, there's a lot of stuff. Today, we're going to talk about limiting beliefs only. Bear in mind that a lot of these things overlap. So, of course, if you have limiting beliefs, then your self-talk and your internal dialogue will be quite negative. You will probably have some troubles managing stress and nerves. So, all of these things are interconnected. And when I work with my clients, we start from one priority and then we work little by little on everything together. What is mindset? Now, mindset is something that most students, most learners forget. Why? Because we don't learn about this in school. We go to school, we learn that we have to learn a list of vocabulary, learn a list of verbs, memorize them, go to the exam, repeat them, and then forget about everything. No one talks about how the performance could be, how we feel, what's going on in our mind. So, your mindset is fundamentally your beliefs, your attitudes, your thought patterns that are ingrained in your mind. They are things that you have been thinking forever, and probably you don't even notice. They shape how you perceive the world, how you see the world around you. And of course, how you approach challenges as well, like IELTS, for example, like a presentation. It influences how you react to everything, to success, to failure, to learning, to personal growth. Everything is influenced by mindset. And of course, depending on how your mindset is, you're going to have a better performance, a worse performance, an average performance. It defines how you believe in yourself, if you have any kind of doubts about your performance. So I would like to take a moment, I would like that you take a moment right now and think about why do we need to shift our mindset to be better IELTS candidates? What is it and what is important about it? Why the list of words, the list of vocabulary, the structure. Yes, those are helpful, but why is mindset fundamental? And I just would like you to have a little think about this because it's very important that you start reflecting. I am a coach. I am not a teacher. And so, as a coach, my job is to ask my clients questions, is to make you understand, to make you see, to make you notice and realize how you think, how you feel, and how you react. And based on what we find out, I ask you questions to overcome all of these blocks. So there needs to be a little bit of reflection from your side, okay? It's not just about giving a solution. Your beliefs define your mindset and in turn, your performance. Now, I don't know if any of you has ever had teacher. You know, one of those teachers when you are in primary school or even high school and they come and they tell you, you're just not really good at maths. Maths is not really your thing. Or maybe they do the same thing in English. They come to you and they're like, yeah, you're not really good at English. You know, you should be really doing something else. And I wonder how many of you still have this idea, longing, lingering in there in your mind, thinking, actually, maybe I'm not that good at English. I mean, if my teacher told me that I'm not good at English, she was right. She must have been right. So think about all the experiences you had in your life with your friends, with your teacher, with your colleagues if you work, with your classmates, parents as well, sometimes can be quite critical. And how many beliefs, positive and negative, you carry with you. We often don't even realize. Not many people sit down and think, hold on a second, did I really think that my English is not good enough? Not many people do that. We get stuck and we think, oh, I don't know enough words. I hear this thing all the time. Oh, I don't know enough words. I need to learn more words. Oh, I don't sound like a native speaker. So we tell ourselves all of these things all the time, day after day, from when we are very young up to the time when you have to get into the IELTS room and speak to the examiner. And guess what's going to happen? Any guesses? It's probably going to be a disaster because you're going to be there thinking, I'm not good enough in English. I don't have enough ideas. So we're going to specifically focus on limiting beliefs today. So limiting beliefs are the opposite of our positive and enriching beliefs, let's say. So limiting beliefs shape what you think about yourself. So they are subconscious thoughts. They are the thoughts that you carry with you. They are assumptions that hold you back from reaching your full potential. Now, they are really mental barriers. They are obstacles. They shape your decisions, they shape your behaviors, they shape your self-perception. Basically, what you think about yourself, what you think about your English. And as we said, these can come from past experiences, society, fear of failure, plenty of situations, okay? Yeah, someone in the chat said, well, Huyen, my piano teacher told me I should fill another hobby. Yeah, of course. Yeah, piano, perfect. That's the perfect example, right? So some examples are very common in English. I'm not good enough. It's too hard to achieve the grade I need. I'm too old or too young to do IELTS. I don't have time. I am just not an English person. So, do you have any limiting beliefs? And this is something that probably for some of you might come very easy. Maybe you realize straight away that you have these limiting beliefs. Probably for other people, it's going to take a little longer. But I would like to invite you and share with us if you have any limiting beliefs. I used to have limiting beliefs. One of my limiting beliefs was that I thought that native speakers are the best speakers. I used to think that, oh, because I am not a native speaker, I will never be able to speak English fluently, properly, at a high standard. Well, guess what? I started looking around. I started looking at people, native speakers around me, and I actually started noticing that that wasn't real. That wasn't the case. I was conditioning myself into thinking that native speakers were the best and that I could have never become like that. So let's think together. I would like you to write down, and this is a practical exercise. You don't, if you want, you can share it with us. But I would like you to think about what is one limiting belief that you have in English or about IELTS. It could also be about IELTS. A lot of people think, oh, IELTS is so hard. IELTS is really, really hard, for example. So if you wish to share it with us, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, keep it next to you because we're going to do a couple of exercises, activities with that idea. I still sometimes think that my vocabulary is not extensive enough. Perfect. That's a good example. So thinking that you don't know enough words, right? Now, not knowing enough words, I'm too old, English is not for me. The next step in the process is to challenge these limiting beliefs. So, your limiting beliefs are ideas, concepts, beliefs that you carry with you throughout your whole life, pretty much, until you reach a point where you actually realize that they are outdated. It's like an old software, really. And you get to the stage where you're like, hey, I can't keep functioning like this. I can't give an exam. I can't do IELTS if I keep on thinking that I'm not able enough. I'm not good enough, right? So we need to question the validity of what we are thinking. We need to listen to what we are telling ourselves. I have to say, this step is much, much easier when you work with a coach, and for a very simple reason. Your brain filters out details all day, right? We get bombarded all day, every day by so many things, ideas, words, people, images. We can't receive everything in the same way. We need to filter things out. The way your brain filters things out is connected to your current mindset. I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you want to buy a new car or a new phone, let's say you want to buy a red mini, you start seeing red minis everywhere. Magic. Now everyone has a red mini now. Why? Simply because your brain is filtering things out. Suddenly, you just see red minis everywhere. It's exactly the same thing with limiting beliefs. If you think that your English is not good enough, you will keep on finding reinforcement of this belief. You will keep on remembering negative experiences you had. You will keep on reinforcing this idea. So, working with a coach, an external person that questions and asks you and says, are you really sure? Are you really sure that this is exactly what happened? Let's try and see things from a different perspective. It actually helps giving you a different point of view, and you can see things differently. So ask yourself, where does this belief come from? Was it my teacher in third grade who told me that my English was horrible and that I wasn't able to spell, I don't know, indefinitely? Or was it maybe my older sister who is much, much better than me in English? Or maybe my younger brother, or maybe my classmate, or maybe my mom, my dad, anyone. Or maybe it's just that I see people on social media all the time. They're so good. Everyone is so good on social media doing everything. So once you find out where it comes from, is there real evidence? When you say, I think I don't have enough words. Is there real evidence that you don't have enough words? And also, enough words to talk about what? I'm sure that you have a pretty extensive vocabulary, but then if I ask you to talk with a neurosurgeon, then of course you're probably going to have some issues. So you need to understand exactly what kind of vocabulary you feel you are lacking. It can't be all the vocabulary under the sun, right? When you say that you are too old, are you really too old? Or are you using it as an excuse to not put any effort? You are already thinking, nah, I'm too old. I'm not even going to try to study. So when you find this evidence that contradicts your belief, in my case, I'll give you my example. I moved to London when I was 20. And I started working in Pret-a-Manger, like many immigrants used to do back in the day, like Starbucks, Pret-a-Manger, Caffè Nero, you got all of them. And I started realizing that I had a couple of English colleagues, and I couldn't understand exactly what they were talking about. And I was like, man, I've studied English for 20 years of my life, and I'm still struggling to understand people. How is that even possible? And so I started getting into this idea, what I said before, that native speakers are amazing, and I was not because I was Italian. And then months went by, years went by. And then at some point, I actually started working in another company. And one day I was talking with one of my colleagues, and she was helping me with some work. And I had to translate something from Italian to English. And she started asking me questions. She started asking me also, how do you translate from English to Italian? How do you change the sentence structure? Do you need this? Do you need that? And that moment made me realize that she had no idea whatsoever of how her language worked. No idea, zero. She didn't even know what a verb was. And that was the proof I needed straight in my face that native speakers do not necessarily know English perfectly. They don't necessarily have the best vocabulary. They don't necessarily hold the knowledge, right? And so I started thinking about this a little bit more, and I started noticing a little bit more. I started noticing all the words that, of course, I didn't know because maybe they were slang used just by some people. So I started reframing my limiting belief. So when you look at your limiting belief, whether you are too old, too young, you don't know enough words, you don't have ideas that are good enough, try and turn your limiting belief into a growth statement. Try to turn it into a positive idea. So instead of saying, I'm not good at public speaking, I'm not good at interviews, be realistic here. You can improve your public speaking with practice. When you say that you always fail at new things, is it really? Or is it that every mistake teaches you something valuable? And I cannot stress enough how important this is because if you get to the door the day of your exam and you are going there, you are there thinking, oh, I don't know enough words. I don't know enough verbs. I don't have enough good ideas. I guarantee you're going to carry that belief in the room with you, and that's not going to help you. That's probably going to be a part of what could go really, really wrong. So, how can you reframe your limiting belief? Now, I would like you to go back to what we wrote down, what you wrote down at the very beginning of this presentation. And I would like you to try and reframe it in a way that suggests growth. It doesn't have to become the complete opposite. I am not expecting you to suddenly wake up and believe that your English is perfect. but you need to start looking at things from a different perspective. Okay. And I'm catching up with the chat. There we go. Ben. I feel like my English isn't very strong and I often don't know what to say because I'm not someone who talks a lot in general. There we go. I sometimes feel like I don't have much content or ideas to share. Well, the thing is, there are people who love speaking. It's just part of their nature. There are people who do not love speaking as much. And so, of course, it would be a little bit, it would be harder for them to get into a room and start talking with a complete stranger about ocean pollution. Like this happens all the time in IELTS. So, what you are going to do here, try and reframe the IELTS setting. So, instead of, oh my God, I need to get into a room and talk to a stranger. I don't know how to talk to a stranger. I don't have enough ideas. Try and reframe it in a way that suits your personality. Why are you doing this exam? Don't think about the stranger as a stranger. Think about it as someone who just has to listen to your English, and that's it. There is um, a goal, a final aim here that goes beyond just chatting with someone. So when I normally have conversations, coaching conversations, I ask a lot of questions about where does this belief come from? What could make you feel better in an exam situation? So it becomes more of a conversation rather than I tell you what to do and you have the answer because we are all different. Our my belief might be completely different from someone else's belief, but if there's one thing that I may suggest, Ben in this case, is try and see how you can reframe the exam setting so that it doesn't feel like you are going in to walk with a random stranger. Okay. I know very little about sport, but I have good vocabulary about wars. Yeah, we we all have our favorite topics. And another thing that I mentioned in another class we did together, a lot of people feel so bad. They say, "Oh, I don't have enough ideas. I don't have enough ideas." Guys, this is not a school exam. It is not a university exam. The examiner doesn't expect you to be an expert in ocean pollution, in overpopulation, in whatever the topic is. They just want to listen to how you use the language. And so if the answer is, I have no freaking clue about ocean pollution, well, of course, you kind of want to reframe it in a different way, but then say it. You don't have to lie. You don't have to become an expert in anything. You just want to show that you can have a conversation in English in the most natural possible way. So notice what you think. Notice your thoughts. Think about this often before you start doing your English practice, before you start doing your IELTS practice. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts? And once you start noticing them, you can change them. You can reframe them into a different story. And then start gather evidence for your new belief. We know that our brain loves proof. We look for proof all the time. So, like what I used to do back in the day with native speakers, I started listening more carefully. I started being like, okay, are we sure that everyone has a great grammar? No, native speakers don't have a great grammar. Are we sure that everyone is able to spell words correctly all the time? No, they don't. I can guarantee they don't. So when you start looking for new evidence, for example, someone was talking about the should have, exactly, should have is the perfect example. Someone was talking about knowing enough words. Put yourself in a situation where you can use the words you know. So help your brain find evidence. Try to practice in situations where you can use the words you know. And then little by little, get into the stretch zone. And we're going to talk about this in just a moment. So look at past successes, learn from people who you admire, seek for feedback, like seek basically what you need to feel a little bit more comfortable in this new perspective. Okay. Now, one thing that I would like to talk about, and this is going to be our last part before I say goodbye to you guys, is a couple of strategies to improve your speaking. Someone was talking at the beginning about part three, and they were mentioning that they struggle with abstract ideas. Most people struggle with abstract ideas. Why? Because we normally, in real life, we rarely talk about abstract ideas. Unless you come from a more philosophical background, maybe you have studied literature, maybe you have studied philosophy, maybe you have studied those kind of subjects. And unless you come from schools where critical thinking was discussed, most people struggle because we don't do it. And so our comfort zone is basically what we are, as the name suggests, comfortable. It's stable, it's low risk, it's easy, it's unchallenged. In a situation like this, it would be, oh, I can talk about my job really well. I can talk about my hobbies really well. I can talk about my family. I can talk about my last holiday. These are all things that we are familiar with. I can also talk for a couple of minutes. I don't mind the long turn. I don't mind the 2 minute speech. But then when we get to the abstract ideas about the world, oh, that's my panic zone. It's unfamiliar. It feels overwhelming. When we are in that state, we are unable to learn, like physically, our brain is not responsive and we feel fearful. And the problem is that most people jump from the comfort zone to the panic zone. So when you are preparing for your IELTS, a lot of people intentionally avoid speaking. They never practice speaking. They speak only with their teacher. The worst one, they memorize answers, which gives you a false sense of comfort. It makes you think, oh, I've got everything under control. I know what I'm doing. Okay. A lot of people don't train critical thinking. And so when they get to the exam, they jump straight into the panic zone, which is speaking with a complete stranger, being evaluated, sharing your opinion, which are probably things that you don't do regularly. You need to train your brain to see these things as something regular. So what could you do is to stretch your zone instead of jumping from the comfort zone to the panic zone. And a little note here, we are all different. My comfort zone may be very, very different to someone else's comfort zone. So if you know that you are the kind of person who never trained critical thinking, then that's going to be the area to tackle. So perhaps what you could do is watch a short news video and maybe talk about it with a person who you trust, maybe a friend, maybe someone who knows that you are preparing for IELTS. Or maybe write down your own ideas just to start getting the juice going, starts the juice flowing. So you start getting a little bit of idea out of here. If you never speak to people, join a conversation group. It can be an online group as well. Join a book club. Join situations where you have to talk to other people that are not just your teacher. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get to the day of the exam and you're going to be in your panic zone. And that's when our mind goes blank. That's when we don't, no ideas. Suddenly we don't have any ideas anymore. So you want to, little by little, getting out and stretch your comfort zone. And then your stretching zone will become your comfort zone. And there will be a new panic zone to tackle. So little by little, you want to do this exercise. So I hope that those few things that we talked about were useful. As we said, we just talked about limiting beliefs. There are a lot of other tools that I talk about with my clients, with my students. Visualization is very important, how to focus, how to build resilience. Um, and of course, if there's anything in here that you are interested in, send me a message or send Huyen a message so we can actually create another masterclass that might be interesting for you, or reach out directly to me and I'll see what I can do to help you. And feel free to connect with me. You can send me any questions you may have. Here you can find my email. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Threads. It's always the same, pretty much everywhere. So it's going to be very easy to find me. But I hope that this was useful for you. And yeah, I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you. Now I can't hear you. Technical problems. Thank you, Eric.
Can you hear? Wait a second.
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Thank you so much for help for joining us today, and I really appreciate your help. And I don't think that anyone has ever thought about the limiting mindset that would possibly stopping them from getting the band score that we need. Because I think when it comes to the IELTS exam or any English exam in that, for that matter, we often think that it's only the English language that matters here. There's
Mhm.
only our foundation of the English language, which is why a lot of people just go to the exam without any preparation and they think that they would get the band score that they need.
Yeah.
And then they get heartbroken because they don't get the band score that they need. And they lose hope and everything. And a lot of people are saying that, okay, this exam is rigged, this exam is not fair. I mean, it's probably true at some extent that it's quite subjective. But at the end of the day, if you have the right mindset and you have the right strategies, you will definitely get the band score that you need.
Yeah.
We have had so many clients who achieved the band score that they needed. So I think it's definitely achievable.
Yeah.
So again, thank you very much, Fats, for joining us. And
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
I really hope to have you on board again in the future. We will be having a lot more masterclass with vets in the future. So, we will frequently see each other. Okay. Thank you so much. So I will be now sharing with you guys the rest of the masterclass, which I was promising you guys the only class that you will ever need to tackle the IELTS speaking exam. I say this with confidence. Okay, I say this with confidence because normally I don't really promise anything to people, but I promise you this is the only class that you will ever need for the IELTS speaking exam. So we have talked a little bit about the IELTS speaking exam, the structure of the exam, and the criteria that I use to assess a speaking performances. And what I said was that you are already fluent in English, and that has been showing you the evidence that you are fluent in English. It's just the mindset that you need to work on now, and the exam skills that you need to work on now. Even if you have the right mindset about your English, if you don't have the exam skills, you will probably also struggle with the IELTS speaking exam. And it's not only the IELTS speaking exam, it is the IELTS exam in general. Because if you've been following me, you know that I am all about strategies. I don't teach English. I do not have English classes. I'm not an English teacher. I'm preparing you for the IELTS exam, basically. So I'm going to teach you the strategies and the techniques that I always teach my clients to help them achieve their target band score in the IELTS speaking exam. As I said, you will not need anything else after this. Maybe some evaluations if you're not confident with your performances, and that's all. So the first thing I want to talk about now is the rules that I created for my clients, and now I'm giving the rules to you so that you will achieve the band score that you need. Everything about an exam has rules attached to it. If you are doing an exam, the reading exam, you know the rules. I have rules for reading. I have rules for listening. I have rules for writing as well. Because the rules keep us disciplined and keep us in line with the exam, and we will get the band score that we need because every single exam has a structure. And if you follow that structure, following the rules, you will get to where you want to be. Plus your English foundation, you will get the band score that you want. So there are 3 speaking rules that I always apply for myself, and also I apply for my clients as well. I will explain the rules in detail right now. So the first rule for the IELTS speaking exam is to be straightforward. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people nowadays to be straightforward. We always try to beat around the bush before we say something. I don't know about you. I don't know about your childhood, but when I was a child, I often went to my mom and asked my mom for like some pocket money or to go out with my friends, and I was never straightforward. I was never like, oh mom, can I go out with my friends? No, I was always like, oh mom, the weather is so nice. Okay, you know what? My friend, she's having a party and I don't know if I should go. She told me to come. So all of that. And in the end, I would say, can I go? Right? So the idea was to ask my mom to allow me to go to my friend's party, but I was never straightforward. I applied that as well in my life later when I started to communicate with people, when I grew up and started to become an adult. I was also not straightforward. I was always beating around the bush. And when I was going to the exam, the IELTS speaking exam for the first time in my life, I did exactly the same. I beat around the bush. I was going through some different directions before answering the questions. Now, here's the one thing. The examiner may have to see or may have to assess tens or twenties of people every day, or at least every week, right? So they don't have time to listen to your flowery language before you answer the question. And there's also a risk that if you don't directly answer the question, you will show up as someone who does not understand the question. Because you don't understand the question, you don't know that you have to answer the question, and you go like giving some irrelevant information, which is why it's very risky for you to not be straightforward. So the very first rule in IELTS speaking exam, whenever you get a question, directly answer it. Okay, if you get a question about your hobbies, say what your hobbies are. If you get a question about the color you like, say what the color you like is. Don't beat around the bush. Don't talk about colors in general. Don't talk about hobbies in general. Talk about yourself first. The same thing would apply to IELTS speaking part 2. When you get the cue card in the IELTS speaking part 2, and when it is time for you to speak, directly tell the examiner what you are going to say in this. I'm going to talk about the train trip that I took from A to B. I'm going to talk about the house that I would love to build in the future in Vietnam, for example. Don't say something like, okay, everybody wants to build a house, a dream house for themselves, or like a train is the most popular means, is one of the most popular means of transport and it's very safe. No, okay? Those are irrelevant details if you haven't given your answer yet. So always try your best to straightforwardly answer the question immediately right after you hear the question, or in the cue card when you start speaking. The same thing applies when you speak in part 3. Now, if you're struggling with part 3, you must listen here, okay? This is going to be very useful for you with the peer technique that I'm going to share later. But over here, be straightforward. If you get a question about your opinion, immediately say, in my opinion, this is like this is like that. Don't beat around the bush. Don't give flowery information, okay? That's the very first thing. Now, the second thing that you need to do is to use the same grammar in the question to answer it. It shows two things. The first thing it shows is that, okay, you understand the grammar. You recognize the grammar, which is why now you are using the same grammar, right? And the second thing that it shows is that you can use that grammar in your speaking. So there are two things you are showing here: recognizing the grammar and being able to use that grammar in your speaking, okay? For example, if I get a question in the past in the present perfect tense, I should use the present perfect tense to answer the question. And the very first thing that I say should always be in the present perfect tense. That shows my recognition, and then that shows my ability to use the past perfect tense, the present perfect tense in the speaking, okay? And you have to do that because also it makes sense. When you have a question about the past, you answer about the past. When you have a question about the present, you answer about the present. When you have a yes/no question, you answer yes or no. It makes sense, right? It shows also that you understand the concept of listening and answering the questions. Now, the third thing here, this is what a lot of people talk about, but they don't tell you what to do. So the third thing is to elaborate your answers. We will never, ever give one word or two word answers. For example, do you like to drink coffee? Yes, I do. Okay, so say something more, right? Now, a fluent person will always give more information to the answer. That shows how fluent they are. Now, in real life, you are probably someone who doesn't like to speak with other people so much. I don't like small talks. Okay, honestly speaking, if I could, I would just go directly into talking about gender inequality or something. Okay, but in small talks or in anything else, most people don't just give yes or no unless they are not interested in the conversation with someone, right? Which is why you should always elaborate your answer. If you give one answer that, okay, your favorite color is pink, say something more about this. Say something more about why you like pink and what kind of what kind of colors that pink goes very well with, for example. So always elaborate your answer to show the examiner that you have the vocabulary, you have the grammar, and you are fluent enough to express information about yourself. This is also very useful for part 3 when you have to explain your opinion. You don't say that I support Donald Trump without saying why, right? You have to explain to me why you support Donald Trump. Don't just say you support Donald Trump because it doesn't look like he's very popular. Okay. And one more tip for you guys over here is to have always in mind a list of grammar points that you want to have in your speaking performance. Now, I know that the vocabulary topics are unpredictable. You cannot predict what kind of topics you will get in your speaking, but you can always prepare your grammar points, okay? And to make sure that you use, because we call it grammatical range and accuracy. Range, right? How big of a range of the vocabulary, of the grammar that you use. That is important. So always keep in mind the list of grammar that you want to use in your speaking exam. You don't have to use all the points that you prepared, but make sure that you have that list in mind so you can do like a mental check note, like okay, check, okay, check, okay, check. So to show that you have a big range of vocabulary and grammar, and make sure that you use the grammar correctly. All right, so here is the list that I have for myself. Of course, I try to use more than this, and I try to use each of these more than once. But if you don't feel like using one or two points over here, that's still fine. Or if you want to use different points, it's still okay for me. Make the list for yourself, and this is the list that I have for myself. You can take a screenshot, or you can, note down if you want. Take a picture if you want. Okay. So tell me one thing. Just look at the list over here and tell me in the comment section what kind of what grammar point that you don't understand. Or it's better, like tell me what grammar point that you use the most in your daily conversations and also in your IELTS speaking. I just wait, I don't know why it's not showing anymore. Okay, let me just check comments, okay. Sorry, I'm just a very what do you call it? Low tech person. I don't know how to show the chat box without stopping screen sharing. Just tell me in the comment section which grammar point you use a lot in your daily conversations and also in your IELTS speaking. We have here somebody using comparative and superlatives a lot. Now, comparative is like she's taller than me. That is comparative. And superlatives are like she's the tallest in the class. That is superlatives. And I want to tell you over here, I want to stop to tell you something over here. I realized one thing about a few years ago. I realized that my clients, we use a lot of relative clauses here. Okay, a lot of relative clauses often got a better band score in their IELTS speaking. So relative clauses are something like Huyền, who is having a masterclass right now, is an IELTS trainer. Who is having a masterclass right now is a relative clause. So I realized, I noticed a few years ago that my clients who use a lot of, not like overuse, I'm not talking about overusing, okay? I'm talking about people who use relative clauses frequently, often got a higher band score than people who do not. So if you want to focus on improving your grammar score, probably look at relative clauses. Do we have another answer here? I have no idea why it does not show. Okay, present continuous and present simple, simple and simple. Okay, I see. Thank you so much, Ben. So I don't know if any of you guys are Indian or from the Indian subcontinent. I've noticed one thing about my clients from India, from the countries in South India, South Asia, is that you guys, they tend to mix between the present simple and the present continuous. For example, a lot of them would say, I'm going to work by bus every day. Okay. Or I'm cooking every day for my family instead of I cook every day for my family, or I go to work every day by bus. Okay. This is a very typical mistake, grammar mistake of people from India and from the Indian subcontinent, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal. If you guys want to normally, if you want to know about your grammar mistakes and your vocabulary mistakes, your pronunciation mistakes, you need somebody who knows to, to fix the mistake for you, to point out the mistakes for you, and then to fix the mistakes for you. But if you don't have anyone, if you are not taking any classes, you're not taking any evaluations, one of the ways to know if you are making any grammar mistakes or any pronunciation mistake is looking at the general mistakes that people from your country often make. If you are from the Philippines, you probably have problem with pronouncing the info sound. Okay, probably, I'm not saying everyone, I'm saying probably you have, because it is a mistake that a lot of people from the Philippines make. And if you are from an Arabic speaking country, your mother tongue is Arabic, is probably the problem with the P sound. Instead of parking, some people say barking because they cannot pronounce the P sound. So one way to know if you are making any grammar or pronunciation mistake is to look at the general mistakes that your people from your country often make, if you don't have a teacher to show you what to do. I'm going to take the grammar, okay? Okay, so this is the bonus tip for you guys. I hope you have got enough time to note down over here. We are moving on to the next part of our master class today. But before we move on to that, I will like to talk to you a little bit about yourself and, take a break, because we have spent 1 hour and 15 minutes almost talking now and listening to different people talking. So I like to ask you if you have any questions about the IELTS speaking exam. If you have any concerns about the IELTS speaking exam, please feel free to ask in the chat box. I would love to answer all the questions. Now, I promise you, if I don't have enough time to answer all the questions today, I will be emailing you my answers later. And after this lesson, at the end of this lesson, I will be sharing with you a bonus, a PDF file for Band 8 IELTS speaking answers. And this bonus is only for people who are staying until the end of this masterclass. And I will be sharing with you guys the recording of this lesson later. So don't worry that if you missed any part of it, because I've noticed that there are people who joined later. If you have any question, feel free to ask. And if you have any specific questions about the IELTS exam in general, please let me know, okay? So Ben is saying that Ben has a problem with learning vocabulary, prepositions, and adverbs. Oh my God, very good question. You don't know how to use them correctly in your own sentence and when you're speaking. Oh my God, this is a very, very good question. Thank you so much, Ben, for a very good question. So there's one thing I like to tell you, and I think it's quite sad, that in terms of prepositions, you need to memorize. That is all. Now, yes, I understand that there's some people, there are rules for using prepositions. For example, when you use in, when to use on, when to use at, okay? But memorizing those rules would make it much more complicated for you to learn than to memorize the entire phrase. Okay, let me give you an example. Prepositions not only go by themselves, they only go with verbs, and they also go with adjectives. Okay, little bit, I'm just gonna share. Let me just do one thing. I'm gonna share my screen here so I can write it down for you. Much easier for you to probably see. Why is it not loading? Seriously. Okay, here it is. One second. Just give me 1 second. I'll share my screen so I can write it down. You can see on my screen as well. Sharing the screen. Okay, it's here. All right, so I'm gonna change the screen and I'm gonna share with you. Okay. Probably you'll see my screen now. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. I can write. Can you see my writing over here? Okay, that is great. Okay, so Ben, unfortunately, for I don't know, I should say unfortunately. Okay, for preposition, okay, preposition. If for people who don't know what prepositions are, they are words like in, on, at, and do excuse my handwriting. Sometimes I'm writing like my handwriting are not really good. So prepositions are words like in, on, at, beyond, something like that, right? Now, as I said, there are rules for using those prepositions, but those are rules. If you should only learn about those rules if you are about to teach English, basically. If you become an English teacher, that's what you should do or what you should learn. Or you want to become an IELTS trainer like myself, of course you need to know. But for a learner, a regular learner, the best way to learn is to learn in phrases, because these words don't only go by themselves. They also go in phrases with verbs and with adjectives. For example, we have a very famous phrase, interest. What preposition should I put here? Interest. For example, I'm interested math, which I'm not, okay? Okay, Ben saying in. Anybody has another opinion? Anyone has another opinion? Okay, Zahara also say in. Any other opinion? Very good, it's in. Okay, very smart. Okay, in. Okay, very good. Now, another example for you. Say, Ben is good math. I hope you are, because I'm not. Okay, which word should I put here? Which preposition? At. Very good. At. Okay. So here's the thing. The thing is, sometimes if you learn the rules for prepositions, you will probably can guess. You can probably guess the prepositions in these cases. But why should you do that? Why should you guess when you can memorize the whole phrase? You can memorize the whole phrase interested in. Interested in. And you can memorize the phrase good at. So the same thing as good, we have bad, right? Bad goes with what preposition? Right, Huyen is bad math. What preposition should go with in? Okay, we have in. Anything else? Zara, do you have any? Maybe you're thinking you were going with in too. In. Okay. Okay, Ben changed his answer is at. Yeah, because you have good at, now you have bad at. Yeah, correct. This is the correct answer. So good at, bad at. So basically, there are reasons behind this, yeah? But the thing is, you don't have to remember the rules. You just have to memorize the phrases. Now, I will tell you one thing. When you search for this word interested, okay, in a good dictionary, for example, the Cambridge Dictionary, you will see that in the example, you will see interested goes with in. That is how you learn. You memorize the whole phrase. So when you memorize something, it will come naturally from your mouth. You don't even have to think about it. So when you use the word interested, you don't have to stop to think, okay, what position is this? What kind of idea this is? What is the context to use which preposition? Because it's not necessary anymore. Okay. Now, interested is an adjective. Good is an adjective. Bad is also an adjective, right? As I said, prepositions can also go with verb. Now, let's say Ben is investing, I don't know, Tesla. Ben is investing ... Tesla. Ben saying on. Okay. Anyone has any other? On. Okay, Zara also say on. Anybody has another opinion on this? We have one more person, Emma. I think this is a very small group, and I think we can learn a lot from here. If you be a little bit more interactive with me. Over. Okay. The most popular answer here is in. Okay. Invested in Tesla. Right? And what about this? Tell me if this sentence is correct, okay? Zahra. Oh yeah, it's Emma here. She say in. Very good. Zahra spent a lot of time to play video games when she was younger. Oh, sorry, I assume because Zahra normally a girl's name. Zahra spent a lot of time to play video games. Is this sentence correct or incorrect? On. Okay, instead of to, on. Right, okay. Spend on. Okay, on. Very good. We have on. And if you change to on, what else you need to change? Playing. Very good. Playing. One more tip for you, okay? In general, after a preposition, a verb will always in the ing form. So you play, on playing, not on play. Okay? On playing. The same thing. That's why if you are taking the IELTS general training, I don't know if you are, any of you are, but if you're doing that, there is a phrase that normally a lot of people use. I look forward to hearing from you. Okay, a lot of people use this right here, say here, because of the word to. Now, to here is also a preposition, and in this case, the word to goes with the phrase look forward, which this is the preposition of look forward. Okay, that is why this is hearing, not here. So in general, Ben, to answer the question for Ben, and also to other people in the class today, yes, there are rules to learn prepositions, but the best way to learn preposition and to be correctly using prepositions is to learn phrases. Okay, if you learn a new word, if you learn a new adjective and a new verb, make sure you understand that some verbs and some adjectives go with certain prepositions, and that is what given in a good dictionary. For example, the Cambridge Dictionary. The best way to learn is to learn through a dictionary. Don't listen to me, don't listen to other people, listen to the dictionary and do that. Okay. And then also over here mentioned adverbs. I'm not sure what problems with adverbs that you are having with. So okay, so if I will come back to the question again when you have time to explain, okay, Ben? Because we won't be going back to our session today about IELTS speaking. Here's the thing. IELTS speaking again is partially your English fluency and partially your exam skills. If you don't have the exam skills, it doesn't matter how good your English is, you cannot show it to the examiner and you will not get the band score that you expect. The thing is, the examiner doesn't know you. The examiner doesn't know how fluent you are in English. They only use, I'm sorry, there is a fly in here. Oh my God. Seriously. Okay, sorry about that. Um, so okay, back. I lost track because of the fly. The examiner doesn't know you, and the examiner doesn't know how fluent you are. This is the very first time the examiner has ever talked to you, and they use only your performance on that day to give you the score. If unfortunately you have taken the IELTS exam, speaking exam before, and you didn't get the band score that you expected, don't feel so disappointed in yourself because you are probably fluent enough already. The only problem here is that you didn't have the exam skills to show off your English. Now you have the 3 rules. The first rule is to be straightforward in answering the questions. The second is to use the same grammar to answer the question. And the third one is to elaborate the answers. And of course, with the bonus tips to use as many grammar points as possible, just have a checklist, a mental checklist for yourself. But of course, that doesn't stop over there, because if you want to impress the examiner with the English that you have, you need to know how to organize your ideas in a way to make it more logical, to make the examiner know that you are giving an answer in a logical way to improve your coherence and your fluency. And along the way, you will be able to use the grammar and the vocabulary that you want to use. And when I talk about vocabulary, I don't think that a lot of people talk about this yet. I'm not talking about the general vocabulary. I'm talking about the topic-specific vocabulary, the vocabulary that is only or mainly for that particular topic. For example, when we talk about movies, you must use, if you want to get more than 7, like more than 6.5, you need to get at least a few words only for movies. For example, genre, actors and stars and production, things like that. If you don't use those vocabulary words, you would be sounding very general, and you would sound like somebody who doesn't really have the vocabulary for that particular topic. And unfortunately, and this is real unfortunately, sometimes we get topics that we don't know much about and we don't have a lot of vocabulary about. And that's our luck, unfortunately. I mean, if you are, I don't know how to make it not offensive. Okay, if you are religious, before your exam, please pray to God, okay, that you get the topic that you like. And you get the topic that you want to talk about, you have a lot of vocabulary about, not the topics that you don't know nothing. Okay. Just kidding. But it's partially true. It's kind of your luck. I remember the first time, not the first time, okay, one time, I don't remember exactly which time, but when I got topics about sports, I know nothing about sport. I don't do sport. I don't play any games. I don't do nothing. Okay, so I was kind of struggling as well. And in my recent exam, I got topics about ice cream. I don't like ice cream. I do not eat ice cream. So what can I say? I don't want to say anything more about ice cream. But of course, there are strategies for you to tackle in those situations. I'll be talking about that. Okay. So Emma is asking how to practice fluency and reflexes when speaking. I say the question is a little bit general. If you can explain a little bit what you mean by practice fluency and reflexes, that would be better for me to answer. Yeah, if you can explain. Don't worry if you want to If you want to send me a private DM, I will answer you in an email. So we are going back to our session before I answer all the other questions again. Okay. So now we are going back to our session. We will be talking about the next thing. We talk about now the peer technique that you can use to logically answer the questions. And this is particularly useful for part 3 of the IELTS speaking exam. So I don't remember who asked the question about IELTS speaking part 3, but here we are talking about this. If you find yourself stuck, if you find yourself not being able to answer any longer than 1 or 2 sentences in IELTS speaking part 3, this is the answer for you. Now, we have something called the peer technique. Peer stands for point, elaboration, example, and restatement. Okay. As I said, we have 3 different rules for the IELTS speaking exam. Be straightforward, use the same grammar, and elaboration. Yeah. I use those 3 rules to develop peer. So the first thing you need to say is the straightforward answer to the question. And that is when you give your point. Okay. Now, you have to give a direct answer to the question. And in this direct answer, you are going to give your point. And after giving your point, you will need to explain your point a little bit in 3 to 4 sentences. And we call it the elaboration. You elaborate. There are different ways to elaborate your answers. We will be talking about it in a few seconds. And then after the elaboration, you will be giving me an example. And this example must be relevant to the elaboration. And this example should be as personal as possible. Okay, you can use your sister, your brother, and one time you went to, I don't know, to the States, for example. Okay, and the last part is the restatement part. This is optional. If you want, you can restate your answer, your point. But if you don't want, and if you think that your answer is already too long, you can skip this part. But in general, you have 4 parts, right? And 3 parts are non-negotiable. We have point, elaboration, and example. Okay, and I will explain now. Now, point. Here is a direct answer to the question. And of course, as I said in rule number 2, you must use the same grammar as a question to answer that particular question. So we approach this following rule number 1 and rule number 2. Okay, a direct answer to the question, stating your point in a clear way using the same grammar. Okay. For example, if you have a question, say, do you like coffee? You say yes. This is a yes/no question. Do you like coffee? This is a yes/no question. You must say yes or no as the very first point, because it is a direct answer and it uses the same grammar. This is, do you like coffee? This is present simple, and it's a yes/no question. You must answer this yes/no question using the present simple tense, which is yes, I do, for example. Okay. And the thing here is that we also need to notice our grammar and our vocabulary, and we shouldn't be using the exact same wording as in the question. So we try to paraphrase it a little bit. Not sure if you have ever heard of the paraphrase technique. Okay, please let me know in the comment section, in the chat, if you have ever heard about the paraphrasing technique. Paraphrasing is actually a very important technique to know and to master before you taking the IELTS speaking, so IELTS exam in general, because it's used in all 4 skills. Okay, so if I get question like, do you like coffee? I'll say yes, I'm a big coffee drinker. So instead of saying yes I do, or yes I like drinking coffee, or yes I do like drinking coffee, I twist it a little bit, saying yes as a direct answer. That's my point, using because this is a yes/no question. And then I say, I'm a big coffee drinker. This is the present simple tense, twisting a little bit instead of saying I like drinking coffee. Okay. Over here, I can this fly again. Over here, I should highlight again the importance of recognizing the grammar that is used in the question. Normally, it's not very difficult. It will go from low grammar points, like low level grammar points, to higher level grammar points from the beginning to the end. If you cannot recognize the grammar points, you will not be able to answer that question using the same grammar, and that is a minus point. Okay, so pay attention to what you hear. Don't only focus on your answers, because I've noticed a lot of my clients, when they hear the questions, the only thing that they think about at that moment is their answer, and they miss some words in the question, or they miss the grammar used in that question, so they don't know what grammar to use, and they kind of panic and they give a very not like an irrelevant answer. So pay attention to the question. You do not have to answer the question right away. You don't have to answer the question the second or the moment the examiner stops talking. You can take 1 or 2 seconds and then you answer, because you need to formulate and you need to think a little bit, right? Don't take it 5 seconds or 10 seconds, but say 1 to 2 seconds should be fine. So again, I want you to take a deep breath when you hear a question, focus on that question and analyze the grammar in the question and the vocabulary in the question. You use the same grammar, but you change the vocabulary. Okay, that is the point, the P part. Now, the first E part is the elaboration. This is when you should elaborate your answer a little bit. So over here, I have an answer. Over here, I have an answer. Yes, I am a big coffee drinker. Yeah. Now, I need to elaborate this answer a little bit, because if I only say that, yes, I am a big coffee drinker, I wouldn't get a very good band score for IELTS speaking. I need to elaborate that. That is why we have the elaboration part. There are many ways to elaborate something, and of course it depends on your personality and your experience, so you can elaborate it in a better way that fits your way of speaking. But I am going to give you a few examples of how I would normally elaborate my answer. And over here, I use this example. Yes, I am a big coffee drinker, to elaborate. I hate this fly, you know. I really hate this fly. It's been bothering me. And this fly, if you know, if you've seen a video of mine, this fly was also presented in one of the videos of mine. Been here forever. Anyway, the first way you can do is explain why you have X. So X over here represents your answer. So your answer over here, my answer over here is, yes, I'm a big coffee drinker. And the first way I can think of right now is to explain why I'm a big coffee drinker and why I like drinking coffee. Okay, so I like drinking coffee because it tastes heavenly, especially when it goes with some sweet desserts. Very simple. This is a part 1 question, so the answer shouldn't be too long, right? So I explain why I love drinking coffee, because coffee tastes very good. Okay, now if I don't want to explain why I love coffee, you should note down. Okay, you should take notes. I'm not going to share this file, because I cannot download this. I don't know why. But so that's why you should note down. The first way is to explain why you like X. X here, me liking coffee. Now, the second way you can do is also to say how that thing at X impacts you. So how coffee impacts me, because coffee helps me stay awake. That it impacts me in that way, right? And this is my answer. You can see over here. So I explain how coffee impacts me to indirectly say why I am a big coffee drinker. Okay. If I want to show off my grammar a little bit more, because as you can see, this question is in the present simple tense, and I want to use more tenses, I want to use more grammar points, I'm going to tell a story, like a very short story using the past simple tense to talk about how this X came to existence, how I became a big coffee drinker. Okay, the same thing would apply, for example, if you ask a question about flower. Okay, your favorite flowers, and you say you like daisies, right? And then you can tell a small and very short story how you came to like daisies in the first place. That's what you can do. And then in over here, you can see my answer. The next thing is could be a little bit more complicated because you need to understand the subject a little bit more, but it's okay if you can't do this, it's still fine. So you can give a short description on how X should be presented. X in this case is coffee, right? So I would describe how X should be prepared or should be served and how to get good coffee and how to make good coffee. I'll say it should be hot. It should be consumed when it is hot. And in my opinion, there are people who like iced coffee, but I never liked it. So in this sentence, in this very quick answer, I used first the present simple tense, but in the passive voice. And then I have a complex sentence, and I have present present perfect tense over here. There's like a wide range of vocabulary and grammar here. And this is a short description of how X should be presented in your opinion. Okay. And you can also give a short description of how daisies should be presented in your house, or what to do to get the best color of daisies in the garden, things like that. So it depends on the topic as well. Next, you can say how you want people to perceive X. Because normally you see that there are a lot of you can say that there are a lot of opinions about daisies, and it can be controversial, but this is how daisies should be grown in the garden, and this is how you should be drinking coffee, right? So you can also talk about this if you run out of ideas. And you can also say what you would like to do with X, what you would like to do with coffee, what you would like to do with daisies. And when you talk about something that possibly you have no idea about, for example, when you are asked questions about books that you like your favorite book, and you're not a reader, you don't really like reading, you like listening and you like watching videos. So you say that I am not a big fan of reading. And what you would like to do with reading. So yeah, the question is, what do you like reading, or what is your favorite book? You say that I am not a big fan of reading, so I honestly do not have a favorite book. And then you say what you would like to do with that, what you would like to do with reading, what you would like to do with favorite books. But I would love to build a habit of reading in the future, because I know it is good for my cognitive behavior, cognitive health, for example. So that's what you can do. When you get a topic or question about things that you don't do or you don't like or you don't know anything about, you can talk about what you would like to do with that in order to elaborate your answer. This prompts me to another answer to another question. Should you lie or should you not lie in the IELTS speaking exam? Now, This exam is about English, right? It doesn't have anything to do with lie or not lie, facts or not facts. Okay? You can lie if you want, but make sure if you lie from the beginning to the end. Don't say yes now and then say no later. That will affect your coherence. All right? So if you want to lie, lie to the end. If you don't want to lie, say tell the truth and explain what you would like to do with that. And if you're not a reader, you say that, oh, I am a book nerd, and you need to explain. Or you can say that I'm not a big fan of reading, and honestly speaking, I don't have a favorite book, but I would love to build a reading habit in the future because I know it's good for my cognitive health. Easy, right? Um, and you can also talk about what people around you say about X. Okay, in this case, I talk about what people around me say about coffee because most of my friends are coffee addicts. Most of my friends drink coffees. Or you can say that most of your friends are not big fans of coffee. All right. This is also another way to elaborate for the answers to the questions you know nothing about, like book. Okay, I'm not a big fan of reading. I don't have a favorite book, but I have a lot of friends who are book nerds, and I would love to build up a reading habit in the future. Things like that. So you can also combine different ways over here to elaborate your answers. Now, by elaborating your answer in a different way, in a structured way like this, you will force yourself to use the grammar points that you are supposed to use to answer these questions, and you also make yourself sound so much more logical because your answer is logical. It will improve your fluency because you sound like you are fluent, right? And you sound more coherent. And when you are answering in this way, you are going to use more linking words to connect the ideas together, and the fly you connect the ideas together, and then boom, you have a good answer, right? The next thing you do is to have an example. Okay, now this example must be related to the elaboration. It must be related to the elaboration, okay? And in many cases, your points are already self-explanatory, which means that you don't really have to explain so much. You can jump directly to the answer. To the example. So the example should be very personal because if you are in part one of the speaking exam, you're talking about yourself, right? Which is why your example has to be about yourself. It has to be very personal. But in part three, you can use examples like countries or neighborhoods or different, like more general examples. But you can also use personal examples. Say, you have a question about what age children should use technology, should start using technology. You say age 7, for example, and then you explain, and in the end, you give an example of your nephew who were given a phone at the age of 5 and became addicted to the phone and couldn't study and became very ill later. Okay, which is why later and more than 5 should be better, and 7 should be the ideal age. So this is the example. The last part of this pyramid is the restatement. Over here, we have this part is entirely optional. If you don't have time, you cannot do this, it's still fine. But if you want, you can restate your point and using different words, different grammar, basically paraphrase the point that you gave in the first sentence. And if you don't want to, you can leave it. It's still fine. Okay. The three most important parts are the point, the elaboration, and the example. Okay. Right. I've been talking a lot. I'm not sure if you guys are following. So let me know if you are following. Let me know you are following. All good? Okay, that is great. Oh, I've been talking too much. I need to like a second to drink. Excuse me. And also this fly, it's bothering me so much. Now, I'll tell you something about myself. Okay, I'll tell you something about myself. I when I in 2000 before 2010 before 2010, yeah, my voice, I had a high pitched voice. If I yelled, you would hear me from a very far away, that much. But for some reason, I was talking too much in college, and I was partying too much. Honestly speaking, and not talking, I was partying too much. And in Vietnam, we do karaoke, drinking a lot, like college students. So for some reason, I developed some um, reflux. Yeah. So it affected my vocal cord and it changed my voice from a high pitched voice to this one, to the one that you are hearing now. And now if I speak a little bit for an extended period of time, I have a very dry mouth and I sound less clear, as I can say. That's why I need to ask you if you hear me well. Okay, so all well, all good, right? So we are actually running out of time a little bit over here. So I'll be very quickly talking about the common mistakes and the common misconceptions about the IELTS speaking exam, because I promise you this is the only class that you will ever need for the IELTS speaking exam. So I'll be talking about everything. Okay. First of all, I highly recommend you stop guessing the questions if you don't understand it. If you don't understand the questions, feel free to ask for the question again now. I have a video, like a long video talking about asking for the questions again. It is on my YouTube channel. You can check it out. Okay, I forgot to put a link over here to drop it for you, but make sure that you understand that if you don't understand the question, you are allowed to ask for the question again, not over and over again, not too many times, but do not ever guess the questions, because there's a chance that your guess is wrong, and because it's wrong, you will not have a very good answer. Okay. Now the next thing is about difficult questions. Now, I'm not sure if you have ever experienced something difficult for you to answer, but again, as I said, this is an English exam. It's not an exam about ideas, or just like Fed said, it's not about you're not expected to be an expert of anything except for your own English. So don't think about the questions as difficult. Think about the questions as something that you know a lot about and something that you know very little about. Okay. And if it's something that you know a lot about, you're lucky. Feel free to do whatever you want. But if it's something that you don't know much about, use the elaboration tactic that I was sharing with you guys, talking about what you would like to do or what you would like to learn about that in the future, and what other people around you say about that. If somebody talks about, I don't know, movie stars with me, I know nothing of movie stars. My husband knows a lot of names. I know like I know see, I can't even come up with a name now. So that's why if anybody asks me about movie stars at the moment, I would be freezing, you know? So don't think about the questions as difficult or not. Think about the questions as something that you know a lot about and something that you don't know much about, and deal with them in a proper way. And then we talk about the pauses. Now, there's a misconception that if you pause, you will get a very low score. It is entirely BS, okay? Who speaks for 2 minutes non-stop without pausing for any second? Who does that? Like nobody, okay? I took classes about communication skills. We are advised to strategically pause to increase our clarity. And I also have a video about this on my YouTube channel. Feel free to watch. I don't know if you have watched it or not. But if you haven't, feel free to watch it on my YouTube channel. And the last thing here is the speaking speed. I know that I am speaking fast now, and I have this problem. I am a fast speaker. It's not only in English, in other languages that I am learning, or in my own mother tongue as well. But the faster is not the better. Clarity is more important. So when you speak fast, you tend to omit sounds in between, and you tend to make mistakes that you cannot control. So I would highly recommend you reduce your speaking speed a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, so that you can control your pronunciation, your vocabulary, your grammar, and everything. So it'd be easier for you to showcase your English to the examiner. And there are other things as well. We talk about formal and informal expressions a lot. And I don't know when I heard that, but somebody on social media, I think on TikTok, said that if you used formal expressions in IELTS speaking, you will lose points. This is absolutely BS. Absolutely BS. Yes, you are encouraged to use informal expressions in speaking because it's casual and you can use informal words. Don't use slangs, by the way, okay? Don't swear. Don't say F you in the middle of the conversation, okay? But it's okay if you want to use some formal expressions, especially in part 3. What is the problem with using formal expressions, right? Don't make it too formal. Make it like in between semi-formal, formal and informal mixed together. And that's fine. If you use formal expressions, it's still okay. Don't worry about that. Anybody tells you otherwise, tell them to go back to school. And there's one more thing. You should also use idioms, okay? It is not compulsory to use idioms, but if you can use idioms, that would be great. Make sure you know that the idioms you are using are popular nowadays or not, because there are idioms that are still being taught in school, but are not very popular nowadays. For example, raining cats and dogs. Nobody is using raining cats and dogs anymore. Okay, so don't do that. And I would highly recommend you reduce the number of filler words in your speaking. Using filler words is not a crime. Like, well, actually, those are filler words. Using them is not a crime, but too much is a big crime. You see the difference from not being not a crime to being a big crime? Nah, okay? Using too many filler words in your speaking would reduce the clarity of your content and reduce the way that you speak. Instead of saying like, use some pauses, some very quick pauses. So when you are detecting that you are about to say a word like, pause a little bit like that, and then continue. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be using filler words, but try your best to reduce the number of filler words in your speaking, and that's all. And speaking speed, as I said, speaking too fast would lead to a lot of different problems. So better reduce your speed a little bit. Okay? Now, I think that is the end of everything now. I like to, over here, for now, I will be giving you the link to download a PDF file for the IELTS Speaking Answers Band 8. And just give me a second. I'm just gonna send you the link now. You guys can download it here. Okay. Now, thank you so much for being here with me, which is why I'm sending this to you guys. Not only, sorry, okay, you guys can download here. And I have 2 questions over here from Emma and from Ben. I will note down these questions and I will answer the question through an email if it's okay for you guys, because it's kind of like taking a bit more time than I expected. Ben and Emma, if you can send me your email so that I can talk to you directly, that would be nice. So we can I can answer the question for you. Okay, if you don't want your email to be shown publicly, I think you can privately DM me over here as well in this chat box. That is great. I will copy your email and I will put your email over here. And then, okay, that is great. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any questions for me now? Like any questions? This is the last thing I like to talk about. I have some preparation plans and you guys can check out my plans on this link if you guys need some preparation. Okay. And here's the link. Okay, as I said, this class is the only class that you will ever need for the IELTS speaking exam. I don't think that you will ever need anything else. Anybody who is selling you things would be, just selling you the same thing, and not even the same thing over here. Now, if you're impressed with my friend's Fitz, you can book her session over here. I will drop the link over here to for you guys to book from her, and she has a 30-minute free consultation call for you guys to book. And I think it's very, very good if you're improving your English in general and your learning in general. So feel free to contact her. So if I make mistake, okay, so the last question over here. Okay, we have a question over here which I think I can answer right now. What if you make a mistake, a grammar mistake when you're speaking? Now, first of all, this is a very good question. If you make a mistake and you realize that you have made a mistake in the IELTS speaking exam when you are speaking, okay, it means that you have a high level of grammar. You recognize your own mistakes. Only people with very high awareness, I would say self-awareness of grammar would know that they have made a mistake. Like when I speak, I know I have made a mistake. It depends on the context, it depends on the situation. I would decide to correct myself or not. When I speak, I know what mistakes I make, right? So if you are speaking in the IELTS speaking exam and you realize that you have made a mistake, immediately go back and correct that mistake. Okay? That shows that you realize the mistake, you recognize the mistake, and you are able to fix it. This is good. Of course, you are not going to over and over do it. Every single sentence you go back, and fix it, right? That is bad. But if one or two mistakes when you're speaking, that would be great. Okay, you just go back immediately and fix. And there's also a risk here. If you realize that it's a mistake and you go back and you fix the mistake with another mistake, that's also a risk. Okay, so be careful with that. Only fix it if you are confident with your correction. Okay, so if you want to communicate with me, want to ask me questions, feel free to ask me the questions. Okay, I will drop my email address over here, info@practice9.co. Okay, can you, when you send me an email, please in the subject, please put this, because I have some automatic filter. It will directly show it to me, otherwise it's show to other people in the team and I will not get. So in the subject line, please write to here and then maybe like question or something like that later. It will be directly shown to me. And again, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so sorry I took like 5 more minutes from your time. I hope you guys enjoy the masterclass, and I will be having and hosting more masterclass in the future about other topics for the IELTS exam in general. But for IELTS speaking, this is the only thing that you need to do. Okay. Now is your turn to identify the weaknesses that you have, and then apply the exam skills that we talked about today to improve your IELTS speaking score. And I really hope that you guys get the band score that you need after this session. Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at info@practice9.co, practice9.co. And on practice9.co, you can also get free practice tests. And I have a lot of blog posts and free tips. Thank you so much. And I will see you later. Bye. Bye.